Top of the day to you folks. Bill Hubbard, Coldwell Banker Executives in British Columbia, Canada. This is an instructional video on how to use the stats machine. If you're looking at this video, you receive an Excel spreadsheet from me every month that outlines the stats in the last 25 to 30 years. And this is an explanation on how to use it. So first of all, let's look at the columns, the stats that we actually use. We have sales, new listings, current inventory, absorption, days on market to sell. That's what DOM stands for. Average price, median price, and months of inventory. So we'll just go through that. Sales, new listings, that's obvious. Current inventory, that's obvious. Absorption is the percentage of monthly inventory that sells. So the percentage of the existing inventory on, say, March 1st, if there's 1,000 houses on the market on March 1st, and 100 of them sell in March, then the absorption rate for that month, March, is 10%. And so the other thing to note about the absorption is that there's this range between 12 and 20% is considered a balanced market. Below 12% is considered a buyer's market. Above 20% is considered a seller's market. Generally, once you get above 20%, as it goes up and up and up above 20%, you're going to get more and more what we call downward pressure on prices. It doesn't mean the prices are going to, that's upward pressure on prices. Doesn't mean the prices are going to go up because there's other forces pushing on those prices. But that does create some upward pressure on prices. As the absorption gets below 12%, if it goes lower and lower and lower below 12%, you get more and more downward pressure on prices. The days on market is days on market to sell. It fluctuates with the other statistics in the marketplace. And it is average price and median price. Median price is the center line for prices that sold. So the median price, say, of $985 here in May of 2024, that means that in that month, an equal number of sales were above 985,000 and an equal number of sales were below 985,000. Same number of sales above and below. This figure column here, months of inventory, is just another way of saying the absorption. If you look at, say, March of 2025, 9.12 months of inventory. What that means is at this rate of sales, 149 sales per month, it would take 9.12 months to sell this number of houses, 1,359 houses. It's another way of saying the absorption. So how do you use the stats machine? First of all, you can use it by just looking at the stats. First, you can see the absorption here. This column, if you go through the absorption, if you look at the absorption in February, March, April, May of 2023, you get 20 and 20 and 25 and 21 and 15. And you see it start to come down in July of 2023. And 2023 was a correction year. It went into single digits here and became quite low. And the substantial part is it's below 12%. And that really hasn't changed for the Central Okanagan. Central Okanagan, as you look at the absorption, which is the most important statistic to determine what's going to happen in the future, because the absorption rate it's an indication of supply and demand and where the supply and demand is going. So if you've got a 10.96% absorption and it is consistently lower than 12%, what that means is the supply coming onto the market is exceeding the demand. And we're probably going to see some downward pressure on prices. Why is that in the Central Okanagan? Well, one of the main explanations is the fires, because the Central Okanagan seems to be doing slightly less than some of the other zones. However, that's kind of irrelevant for this conversation. So the next thing way you can use the stats machine is by something called running averages. Okay, so a running average is, let's just take the absorption here from January of 2025 to March of 2025. So that's a running average for 3 months. And if you look over here, right down here, this incredibly fine print, it says 10.64%. Average 10.64%. What that means is the average of those three figures is 10.64%. If you compare to January of 2024 to March, it's 10.41%. Very, very similar figure. So what that tells me is the market's relatively flat. And those are called running averages. Sometimes you can take a whole year. Say we want to compare 2024. So I'm going to click on January and then go down to December and then shift click, highlight the whole year. The average absorption for 2024 was 10.84%. And then I go down to January, or go back to January of 2023 to December, again, shift click. It's 15.15%. So you can see a fairly aggressive drop in the absorption between 2023 and 2024. And that stands to reason, because 2023 and 2024 were correction years. The market was turning down in those years. The next thing that, so those are running averages, and you can do that. One thing I didn't mention before is you have all these tabs along the bottom. You've got the central Okanagan. First of all, next to the central Okanagan is you've got some instructions, which has a lot of what we're talking about on how to use the spreadsheet, the stats machine. Then you've got the central Okanagan, the north Okanagan, the Shuswap, the Kootenays, Kamloops, Fraser Valley, and Vancouver. And those are the markets we watch so far. We'll flip back here to the central Okanagan. The next way you can utilize the stats machine is by these stats over here. So these are the totals or averages of the entire year. So this is the average year-to-date median price. So we take this column and we take the average of each year and put it into December. So the average sale price in 2024 was $940,000 in the central Okanagan, $940,731. If you look at, just move that out of the way, in 2023 it was 942,473. So almost the same, flat prices. So you can go right across here and you've got average year-to-date median price, you've got the percentage change, you've got average year-to-date sales and the percentage of change, average year-to-date total sales, average inventory and the percentage of change in that average inventory, and then average absorption and the percentage of change in that average absorption. Here, the next way you can pull information out is you have the same story, only broken down into quarters. In other words, January, February, March, April, May, June, the quarters of the year. The last way that you can pull information is by the graphs down below. So I won't go into this in too much detail, but if you want to use the graphs, you come down here and click beside sales activity. And you go up here and you see that there is something that's highlighted automatically when you click on that sales activity. Say I want to get the average, I want to graph the absorption over the last 5 years. Okay, so I'm going to put my cursor here till there's a little cross shows up. I'm going to click and drag this down to March of 2025. But then I got to find out, where does it start? It starts up here. So March of 2025, say I want to go back to, say, January of 2020. Oh, I'm going to have to, okay. I have to go down and click on the graph again. Okay, so that was, all right, let's start that over again. We're going to click on sales, and this is highlighted. For fuck's sakes. Okay, so the next way to get information out of the stats machine is by the graphs. As you can see below all the statistics here, there's these graphs, and each one of the statistics are graphed. So the way you utilize the graph is, let's take a look at sales activity. So I'm going to click beside the sales activity, and you can see the column for the year, the month, and the sales activity are highlighted. So I'm going to put my cursor right on the corner here, and I'm going to drag it down. Say I want to see the last 5 years in sales in the central Okanagan. So I clicked on it and I dragged it down to the latest stat, which is March of 2025. Then I'm going to back up here, and it's all the way back up to December of 2010. But I want the last 5 years. So I'm going to put my cursor on the top right-hand corner there, click and hold, and drag it down. Say to January of 2010, or sorry, of 2020. I go down to the graph, and that is the graph of sales between January 2020 and today, March of 2025. And as you can see, it's over here, January of 2020, all the way over to March of 2025. Actually, over to March of 2025. So the and you can do that with any one of these columns. If we want to compare inventory is an interesting one to compare. So we're going to go down to find the inventory graph. I got to wait for my computer to catch up. There we go. Current inventory. Okay, I'm going to click on that current inventory, which is going to highlight the column. You see it highlighted here. We're going to go back up here, and I'm going to put my cursor in the bottom right-hand corner, click, and drag it down to March. Go all the way back up to the top. So it's all the way back to the very top. And then I'm going to click on there as well. And I'm going to drag it all the way down. See what's happened to the current inventory in the last 5 years. So we'll take it to January of 2020. Go back down to the graph. Current inventory. So as you can see, as you went through 2020, so remember what 2020 and 2021 and 2022 were. They were boom years. So the demand is above the supply and increasing over the supply. So the inventory comes down, hovers around in here, starts to go up in 2022 in April, May 2022. And it's sort of a general rise all the way through to March of 2025. And that is consistent with the market in that the demand was decreasing after about 2022, and so the inventory started to rise. So those are the ways you utilize the stats machine. Those are the ways you utilize the stats machine. So those are the ways you utilize the stats machine. You can look at the statistics, you can do running averages, you can look at the annual summaries, and you can look at the quarterly summaries, or you can check out the graphs and change the figures that the graphs are pulling from. Thank you.